If you've read The Anxious Generation or even just heard about it, you probably felt something. Maybe relief. Finally, someone put words to what you were already seeing. Maybe it was fear because the data is real and it's worse than you thought. Maybe it's a combination of both of those things. But here's what I want to say to you first before anything else. You're not a bad parent. You're a parent doing your best in an environment nobody prepared you for. And I mean that. But I also want to offer you something that Haidt's book couldn't. Not a diagnosis of your teenager, a diagnosis of the environment your teenager is forming in. Because here's what 15 years of research on adolescent identity has taught. The apple doesn't fall from the tree. And that's not a curse. That's actually the most helpful thing I can tell you. Because if your teenager's formation is connected to yours, then you are the lever. Not the phone, not the school, not the algorithm, you. Let's talk about what that actually means. I want to be clear about something before I go any further. Jonathan Haidt is right. He named 2012 as the year everything shifted when smartphones became ubiquitous and adolescent mental health data started moving in the wrong direction. The correlation between phone-based childhood and anxiety, depression, and loneliness is real and documented. He also did something I couldn't do. He wrote a book that reached 2 million parents. He gave them language for something they were already feeling. He created cultural permission to take this seriously. The Anxious Generation, his book, is a gift to parents. What it couldn't give them, and what no population-level diagnosis can give them, is a framework for their specific teenager. And there's one more thing it couldn't give them. A question I haven't been able to stop asking since I started this research. If this is what the teenager looks like, who formed them? Here's a take I want you to sit with. The Anxious Generation was not formed in isolation. They were formed by someone. My research is on teenagers, and what I keep seeing across 15 years of studying adolescent identity is a generation that looks formed on the outside and isn't on the inside. High performance, low foundation. Which raises a question I can't stop asking. Where did that pattern come from? Because formation doesn't happen in a vacuum. Teenagers form inside environments, and the most powerful formation environment a teenager has isn't school or social media or their friend group. It's their home. It's the adults in the room who are navigating their own unresolved questions about safety, about success, about status, about whether their kid is going to be okay in a world that feels unstable. I don't have a study on this. What I have is 15 years of watching teenagers and a question I keep following upstream. The apple doesn't fall from the tree. The phone didn't create the anxious generation. The phone was the tool. The conditions were already there. And then Haidt wrote a book, a very good book that told every anxious parent, you were right to be worried. It's worse than you thought. 2 million copies of confirmation that the thing you were already afraid of is real and documented and backed by data. I'm not criticizing the book. I'm naming what it does to an already anxious parent. It makes them more anxious. And an anxious parent, now armed with data, does what? They double down. They restrict. They monitor harder. They helicopter lower. They treat the phone like a disease when the phone is a symptom of something that started before the phone arrived. You cannot form a secure teenager from an anxious posture. That's not judgment. That's developmental science. I've been researching adolescent identity formation since 2005, before Instagram existed. And the question that has organized my work for 15 years is not what the teenager is doing online. Formation requires something that anxiety destroys: space. Space to explore, space to fail, space to know not yet, space to try on an identity and find out it doesn't fit. Anxious parents close space, not because they're bad parents, but because they're anxious. And anxious kids who have never been given space to form, they don't develop a self. They don't develop their identity. They perform one. They become what I call the performer: high commitment, low exploration. Looks great on the outside, genuinely fragile underneath. The anxious generation isn't just anxious. They're performing okayness for parents who need them to be okay. So here's the diagnosis Haidt's book didn't give you. Your teenager's formation is downstream of yours, not your failures, your formation. Where are you in terms of your own identity, your own anxiety, your own unresolved questions about who you are and what you're worth? That's not blame. That's biology. That's developmental science. That's what over 15 years of research tells me. The most important formation environment your teenager has is you, which means the most important question isn't, is my teenager ready for a phone? The most important question is, am I showing my teenager what a formed person looks like? If you've read The Anxious Generation and you still feel anxious, I want to help you with that. Not with more data about what's wrong, but with a framework for understanding where your teenager actually is right now and what they need from you in this season. I built a free identity formation assessment. It takes 5 minutes. It shows you your teenager's current identity status, not the generation, but your teenager's identity status. You can find it at identityspecialist.net/assessment. And here's what I want you to notice when you take it. Some of what you see in your teenager, you'll recognize. The link is in the description. Take it before you do anything else, because the apple doesn't fall from the tree. And that's not a curse. It's an invitation. Thanks again for watching. If you know someone that could use this content, please send it to them. I'd love to hear from you. If you have any questions or comments, please leave it in the comments below. Would love to just interact with you and find out more about how you're thinking about this information. So again, thanks for watching. Please subscribe. Please check out the Formation and Phones playlist. It's a 5-video series on formation and phones. I think you'll find it helpful. And again, thanks for watching. And as always, don't forget, be unique, but belong.